Hello, everyone. I'm Chestic44, also known as Fly, and welcome to this Let's Play of In Other Waters. Last episode, after a brief detour in order to collect an egg, we made our way over to this area of shattered bits of rock being damaged by the current around here. And we've managed to make our way out to a way station through some more new species we've found. Okay, open up the terminal, see what data we can scrape from this place. On it. Give us power. Give us oxygen. Map data. The log suggests Monet was using this as some kind of staging ground for expeditions over the drop-off. She was looking for something out in the ocean. Something deep from the descents she logged here. Monet doesn't do things at random. The way station's a research base. This is calculated. I feel like we are already 10 steps behind her and we've barely even started. Let's get to that suit transponder. It isn't far from here. If we head straight north to the shelf's edge, it should be there. Okay. So we could, but let's get the transponder. Like many of the large rocks on this shelf, this outcrop has been split, creating a passage to the east and another to the north. Let's see. A swirl of sand suggests this passage leads to the reef edge and the open water beyond. Surrounded by shimmering petals, a pulsing stalk pumps out spores. Do these carbon-rich particles feed plants too? As the shattered edge of the reef curves away to the east, the currents fade and the static water grows warmer. What do we have here? Suve spores. Okay. From the cover of this canopy, I can see a series of tall pillars out to the east, each one topped with a garden of unknown life. A strong current cuts across the east edge of the shelf with the turquoise haze of the open ocean stretching beyond. Obviously, we can't go there. We're at a bit of a dead end here. So I guess the only choice left is to go to the suit. This side of the finger feels exposed, but thanks to its current-splitting outcrops, it remains a bubble of calm. Almost. At this tip of the shelf, the outcrops fall away to reveal an unrestricted view of the vast ocean. It is both terrifying and beautiful. I see something at the edge. Is that the suit? Open, empty, and half-sunken sand. Why would she leave it here, and more importantly, where did she go? Oh dear. It's definitely Monet's suit, but no Monet. Surely she isn't... Okay. Let's not jump to conclusions. I want to take a look at this. It can't have been here long. Most of it is still in good condition, but how did it get out here? There's no evidence of injury. Malfunction, perhaps? What do you think? It's the only thing that makes sense. How else could something be left out here? But then where is she? Could she have just swum to the surface? Did she intend us to find it? Monet, what did you get yourself into here? It's better equipped than our suit, but the seals have started decaying. What's this? Monet's rigged up some kind of propulsion system, probably to deal with the currents. We can use this. We'll need a power source. It won't run off the suit system. Seems like she fashioned some kind of microbial fuel cell. We'll need to recreate that if we want to use it. Okay, let's get this back to the base so I can get a better look. Monet, you better not have done something stupid. I didn't come all the way out here to bury you. Let's go. Call for drone pickup. Sure. Oh! Oh, I can just call for the drone pickup from here. Bring us out. We've got studying to do as well. My nose has been so itchy. 3.6 hours downtime this time. Back with me? Yeah, I'm here. Good to hear. Let me update you. I've spent the past few hours working on Moné's suit. Bad news is the majority of it is unusable. Apart from that propulsion system Moné pulled together, we're going to need a power source. Moné's suit logs mention her building a fuel cell using microbes from the Western Reef. But they don't say much else. She's been incredibly secretive while she was here, covering her tracks across the reef as if there was someone watching. Or she's just... I don't know. The Moné I knew is tricky, complicated, but not paranoid. Either way, if we want to recreate our propulsion system, we'll need those microbes. When you're ready, let's head to the Western Stock Forest and see what we can find. Sure. Got a new message here. Moné's suit, open to the ocean, empty. What has she done? I'm trying hard to reconcile the Moné I once knew with the evidence in front of me. When I met her on Kepler 62F, she was intense and quiet, but calculated, intelligent. She wasn't someone to take unnecessary risks, to leap into the unknown. First, I found her impossibly intimidating. Her experience working as a biologist far outstripped my own. Baikal brought me to the site as a consultant to examine her discoveries, but I felt like the one under examination. The base was much like this one, a smaller, older model, sunk in a subglacial ocean. Someone might think a relationship was inevitable, given those intimate conditions, but it wasn't the base that brought me to her, it was that intensity. Over the few years since, I have tried not to dwell on what happened on Kepler 62F, but being here, living where she has lived, following her scattered steps, it's impossible not to remember. Okay. Put all these samples in here. Canopy root's an important one, I think. We'll have to go with that for now. Okay, we've got a few things here. Table stalk. Pale yellow canopies formed from many stalks entwined together which reach impressive heights. Table stalks are part of the reef's many interlocking species of stalks, though these individuals can only be found in the eastern reef. There, they tower over the other creatures, providing dappled shade for the life that grows around them. One of the notable features of table stalks is the rhythmic opening and closing of their pores, which provides a steady flow of water beneath their canopies. This seems to be highly beneficial to the growth of other species, with most table stalks being surrounded by many types of stalks and other species entirely. Also notable are the ball-shaped growths of differing sizes which sit high in the table stalk's canopies. Sampling these might help us understand the table stalks better. Root sample, growth sample, okay. And the reef cap. Large domed stalks which, like terrestrial mushrooms, release spores from gills on the underside of the cap. In the wider stalk ecology, reef caps appear to play the role of emergency response, growing in areas where the stalk colonies are failing or are heavily predated upon, and proceeding to shower them with spores. However, these spores seem to differ from those released by other species of stalk, in that they quickly dissolve when expelled. Analyzing these spores is important to better understanding the reef cap's role. Are they reproductive spores tasked with adding newly seeded stalks to existing colonies, or nutrient spores intended to boost the health of dying or diseased individuals? Spore sample, tissue sample, okay. And shimmer blooms. Shimmer blooms are single-petaled plants found primarily in the sheltered waters of the East Reef. As they produce pollen as well as photosynthesize, I have classified the visible portion of these plants as petals, though they could also be thought of as leaves, serving both functions simultaneously. Shimmer blooms can be green, like most terrestrial plants. However, they can also be found to be yellow, red, or purple in color. The image of a patch of blooms is a beautiful one, and as they shift in the soft currents, they often seem to shimmer. The lower part of their single petal features many small stamens, which produce a fluffy, clumped pollen. Analysis of this pollen may provide some insight into their life cycle. Pollen sample, shoot sample. Alright. Well, let's perform analysis. First of the soothe spores. Okay, that's good there. Next, the bright pollen, which we sampled some. Okay, shimmer blooms. Stalk root. Reef stalks, good. We've got canopy root. And finally, stalk segment. There we go. This will help us out a lot. Now, let's see what we got here. Reef stalks. Finally, we finished them. Close analysis of stalk root networks reveals something surprising. The root networks are in fact part of a symbiote, a different fungal species entirely, which exists within the stalk's bodies. This fungal symbiote provides a carbon exchange network which runs throughout the bedrock of the reef, connecting all colonies in a single web. This symbiote also produces the spores which the stalks use to communicate, but these spores are edited by the stalks themselves to act as reproductive agents, information carriers, and chemical delivery systems. If the stalks are able to edit the genetic structures of these spores and their parent species, their intelligence and complexity must be way beyond what I previously theorized. Close analysis of stalk spore language could reveal an entire corpus of communication. Are there stalk jokes, stalk histories, or even stalk literatures? So these are what the stalks are. Chitin plate boundaries, irising pores, helical growths. And this is a dermal study, input pore, output pore. Interesting. And now that I look at this, I can see how the reef bloats are a little bit different. Because this is what the stalk is down here, but this is everything bursting it apart. Alright, signal stalks. Chemical analysis of a signal stalk tissue sample has confirmed the presence of a yeast-like fungus and large amounts of ethanol saturated in the tissue itself. This prompts a rethink of why many creatures target the hard-to-get signal stalks as a foodstuff. While I initially theorized it was due to their role as protectors of stalk colonies, the significant presence of ethanol in signal stalk tissue means most creatures would feel the effects of the alcohol consumed and may get buzzed from grazing on signal stalks. This, in moderation, would be a favorable, even enjoyable effect for the creatures, leading them to repeatedly target signal stalks. If I remain stranded on Gliese 667cc for long enough, I may need to make use of this particular biological property myself. So what they're saying is the signal stalks, basically, you're gonna get drunk on it. They make the shrill sacs. Okay. Interesting. Now we got the table stalk behavior. Analysis of a table stalk root shows a number of minerals not associated with stalk growth being extracted from the bedrock. Do the table stalks need these minerals to survive, or are they using them for some other purpose? A cross-section of the root shows a central chamber typical of the carbon transfer system seen in other stalks. But unlike those stalks, table stalks have many subsidiary chambers, like a bundle of wires, each carrying a particular cocktail of mineral compounds. These secondary roots are not drawing up large amounts of these materials, just traces. But why? Perhaps there's some connection to these growths in the upper canopies of the table stalks. They are well secured by the stalk's tight binding, but perhaps we can find one that has been dislodged. Yeah, we'll need to find a sample. And the reef cap. Soothe spores, the name by which I have come to call the reef cap spores, don't seem to be spores at all. Unlike the modified spores of other stalks, these particles don't have any reproductive capacity. Instead, they resemble endospores, dormant bacteria reduced to dried husks, which can survive for hundreds of years in toxic environments without nutrients. Endospores are incredibly tough and high in calcium, and when released by the reef caps, they dissolve and transfer this calcium to the surrounding environment where it is absorbed by the local stalks. This windfall of calcium granted by the cap soothe spores seems to allow stalks to augment their internal signaling and toughen their membrane to protect them from predators, allowing them to recover rapidly. But the question remains, how do the reef caps produce these endospores? I'll need a tissue sample. And as for the shimmer blooms, laboratory analysis of shimmer bloom pollen reveals it to be a heavy, sticky substance atypical for waterborne distribution. Unlike on terrestrial plants like seagrass, whose pollen is distributed by water currents and is therefore long and light, Shimmerbloom's spherical heavy pollen seems intended to resist distribution by current and must instead be distributed by creatures who visit the blooms. The reason for this may be the Shimmerbloom's tendency to grow on exposed shelves or pillars, which would risk lightweight water-transported pollen being sucked into the deep ocean, rather than being distributed to viable sites. By relying on creature transport, bloom pollen has a better chance of reaching another sunlit shelf or pillar. Interesting. We'll need to find a shoot sample. Alright, and all we have here is a dive map. So we've got... Table stalk. On the reef's middle finger where the forest and the currents fight for dominance, perhaps we can find a table stalk willing to give up its secrets. Where strong currents batter the stalk forest might be a good place to find exposed or damaged sing stalks. I've noticed tiny pieces of reef cap drifting down this long rift. If we can fight the current, perhaps we can find the individual shedding them. And these pillars, tucked behind the fingers of the reef, are only just being germinated by the Shimmerblooms. Can we sample a young shoot here? So it seems like in order to get any of the other major samples we need to figure out a way that we can get across these big pushes of current. And for that, we need to go over here. In Monet's notes in her microbial fuel cell design, she mentions sourcing 4 microbe colonies from this part of the reef. We've been there, so we know what it's like. But we need to head over there, it seems. Let's head over. Maybe we can get more samples. Fortunately, we've already explored, so this should be relatively quick. We don't have much in the way of the, whatever they're called. So we'll need to get a bunch of them. Alright. Secure more of the shrill sacks. We're gonna end up needing to pop some of these. Which is going to hurt, without a doubt. Monet's map data mentions a microbe which only occurs in this stalk forest. If we can find 4 healthy colonies, it will make the ideal basis for the propulsion system's fuel cell. Sure, I'll get on that right away. What are those strange inflated stalks? They look like the sporing growths we found in the eastern caves, but there's something wrong with them. We need to break them open somehow so we can sample the microbial colony inside. Let's see if they respond to the shrill sacks. Yep, that's the best we got. Okay, we need a bunch more of these. We've got one! But the clouds of microbes these stalks release are incredibly toxic. The suit is having to flush its vents with oxygen to protect me. We've lost a lot of reserve oxygen. We're going to need to be fast when sampling these bloats. Let's get another 3 colonies. But be careful, I don't want to run out of oxygen out here. Don't worry, I have no intention of letting you die. Don't worry, we'll find more of them. Okay, we've got another one. Right, get on it. Got it. Head back south. Great, now we have plenty of these microbial colonies. Where did this infection come from? The stalks seem to be struggling to deal with it. Or is this just part of their expected life cycle? What do you think? After what we've learned before, I'm going to say no. I agree, this feels like a rare event. An epidemic, perhaps. What's the source? Either way, let's bring these back to the base as soon as we can. We can analyze these samples there. Call on the pickup. Oh, we can just call it in. Well, that was fast. .1 hour downtime. Hey, you ready to get back to work? Definitely. Great, because I've had a very productive few hours. I've been working on that propulsion system. I've used those 4 microbial samples to grow a new colony in the lab. Then I transferred it to a secure containment capsule. Nice and snug. I followed what I could from Monet's notes on building a microbial fuel cell. It's all loaded onto the suit. The MFC fed directly from our reserve oxygen supply. Now we just need to take the suit out for a dive to test it. It's going to take plenty of oxygen to fuel the colony, so bring any samples that'll help out. Make sure not to take any we haven't put through analysis on the lab level first. I don't want to burn through hours of research material just to get a power boost. This propulsion system will let us pass through strong currents and move more quickly. We should be able to cut across that rift north of the way station and see what the bloom finally is. Ready when you are. We have a new message here. No, we already read that one. Okay, we've got plenty here. We can use this to restore power if need be. Which isn't a bad thing, but I'm going to put 2 of these in. We've got a whole bunch of things that we can use. And that'll go back north. But we're not heading north. I want to get this sample from the shimmer blooms, and I need to get this sample down here. That'll probably be the fastest and easiest. Although it's all the way over there. I think what we can do is we can get on the East Reef and go through here in order to get what we need to get down to here. That's probably the fastest and easiest way to get over there. Then we can head back to here, go down into the southern forest and make our way up to get this sample. Then we can head back up, then make our way over to here to get these 2 samples. That should be relatively easy. Let's start with the East Reef. Okay, so you'll find the controls and the utilities where sampling and everything is. Once you've found the propulsion system, let's try it out. But remember, it uses oxygen. Be careful. When you've got the hang of it, let's try to cross the northern rift. Okay. And now we can actually get across here. East of here, the current fades and strange pillars rise up from the dark of the ocean floor. Oh! These funny, feathery creatures are all around these gardens. Let's start observing their movements. A cleverly camouflaged creature mainly composed of feathery, frond-like arms which waves rhythmically as it moves. And a silken plant. These twisted strands are like webs between the pillars. Let's start logging them. This large pillar extends down into the murk of the deep water below, standing improbably straight and tall, a geological anomaly. This pillar is topped with a layer of bright and sunlit life. Looking around, each of the pillars here has the same green-gold peak. Patterns of dents in the sand show the paths of the feathery creatures that cross from pillar to pillar in slow and purposeful loops. These silken strands meet in places and become tangled in one another, forming complex webs that are slow to navigate. Between the pillars, bright green webs of twisted tendrils extend, forming thin pathways from garden to garden. In the sunlight, these spade-like petals open themselves wide to the light, welcoming it gratefully. Well, we've got a sample here that we can get. Oh, hold on. It appears that a number of the creature's feathery arms have sharp edges that it uses to prune the pillar garden's flora. I've observed these feathered creatures moving between pillars along the web-like plants that connect them. These trailing plants can be of great length and appear to only grow from the sides of the pillars. How do they form? The gaps between the tendrils are webbed with fine strands, almost invisible to the naked eye. This patch of water is entirely enclosed by webbed tendrils, and thin strands float through the water like lost hairs. These entwined tendrils are flat like blades of kelp and hold themselves taut between the pillar tops. What can I gather here? Bright pollen, which gives actually a little bit of a boost. We could use that. We can explore the northern reaches of this, I think. Observing the underside of these plants, I can see a layer of pores, stomata perhaps, for waste release. The green tendrils that enclose the space seem to calm the currents, creating a pool of still water. I have observed these plants in shades which stretch from bright green to ivory white. Is this an indicator of their age or health? This pillar top is thick with waving petals, each one caked in tiny particles of golden pollen. The green tendrils don't seem to reach east beyond this point, preferring instead to turn back into the protected waters south of here. Out away from the pillars, the ocean grants a sense of vertigo, fading down into unknown depths below. This pillar, unlike the others, lacks a garden of its own. Have the plants been cleared, or have they simply not reached this far yet? I have a feeling we shouldn't go that way. Not yet. We'll try it some other time in the future. What dictates which pillars the tendrils stretch to and from? I've yet to see a tendril which is only halfway formed. Here we can get more bright pollen. We can pass on that for now. I've noticed these strands don't connect directly to the pillars, but disappear into holes in their sides. What are they connected to, then? Sea silk. I've named the sea silk, though I'm not sure what kind of plant it is. Check my notes back at base. Long strands of pale green and white plant matter that twist into broad, flat bridges and webs between the pillar gardens. This broad pillar is full of rough-looking boreholes. Chitin plates glinting here and there suggest they are burrows. And the lower parts of this pillar are marked with narrow holes. Around them, small plates of chitin shells glint. Find something useful here, I think. Oh, hello! I saw that. Sample something unknown. Unfortunately, whatever it was, I couldn't get to fast enough. Seems that if they're knocked off a surface, these creatures can swim, but very inefficiently. Must be an emergency measure. These two tendril bridges almost meet before disappearing into holes in the pillar. Are they rooted to the rock inside? The gaps between the pillars are a pattern I cannot read, one that speaks of a complex geological history. This impossibly thin pillar rises up from the murk like a pencil, its sides marked by the faint strata of geological eons. The feathery creatures that pass along the tendrils seem to be unshakable in their routines, each one carefully doing its rounds. These tendrils have grown close enough to each other to form a complex tangle of strands between the small pillars. It's apparent that matter from the blooms, such as pollen, collects in this creature's feathery arms. Is this intentional? Gardener! I'm calling these gardeners. They're so attentive and personal, and purposeful. I want to know more about them. Some of these pillar tops are very small, but that doesn't seem to stop the petals colonizing them with their bright shapes. It's easy to get confused once you're among these webbed tendrils, navigating between sunken islands of life. Oh, hi! I found that one. These creatures are tricky to catch a glimpse of. Let's see if we can scare up a few more. When disturbed, this segmented creature shot out of its burrow, ejecting grit and sediment as it swam away. Quite the surprise. How did these monoliths form? Perhaps they are cores of harder rock which remained when the rest was eroded away. The individual thin, fibrous strands which make up these pillar bridges are so fine they could almost be silk. I bet I can get a sample of this. Yep, this is something new. We've got silken strands, pale green strands of plant tendril from the pillar gardens. Let's see. The tendrils seem to be avoiding this pillar. In fact, they appear to be avoiding the main shelf of the reef altogether. This tendril has to stretch a long distance to bridge these pillars. How do they grow like this without any support? Too small to enter, this hole in the pillar leads deep into the rock. A tail piece left by the inhabitant sits just inside. We could sample it. This pillar top is a little sparser than some of the others. Perhaps these more southern pillars have only recently been seeded? We're gonna get... There we go! Got it! These creatures scrape away at the pillar surface, carving their burrows into the rock. It's impressive given the density of the pillars. Where these tendrils meet, the feathery creatures are able to carefully clamber from one to another, leaving behind feathers as they do. Okay, looks like we need to get rid of some of our things. There we go. Now, if you don't mind, gather this. Pillar garden. Despite sitting all the way out here, this pillar is hooked up to the others by a long tendril. And down here, only a single bridge leads from pillar to pillar, a lone creature braving the currents as it crosses. Bright pollen. We don't need any bright pollen. Out, away from the other gardens, this wide pillar feels like a calming sanctuary, a blob of green and gold in a sea of blue. More bright pollen, which I don't need. A tendril loosely dangles from the pillar, its root half pulled out of the rock. It is pale and bulbous. We could sample it here. One final bridge stretches down to the southernmost pillar, its strands swaying with the rising current. Okay, this is something we need to sample. Unfortunately, I need to remove something again. We'll use the stock bark. Give us some more power. Here we go. We've got silken root. Okay, we're almost through here. Despite being so thick, this pillar is cut through with small holes, and on its top a couple of shell plates catch the light. Catch it? I've observed these creatures have a bright tail lure made from many thin, pointed plates. What is its purpose, I wonder? I think we may have one of these. Yep, we've already got the chitin plate. These small young petals are starting to open up to the three suns of Gliese 667cc. This place will be even more beautiful one day. And this is something we need. Alright, get rid of this. There we go. Now we've got a petal shoot. Alright. Let me just see if I can go back and find a way to catch those speedy things. I think there were a few over to the east. If we get over to there, then we should be able to go back, and we'll be learning about a lot more of these things. Oh! A creature has left behind one of its delicate arms here, perhaps in order to escape a predator? We could take a sample from it. Oh, that's actually... Oh, we've already got those. But... that's something new. So we need to deposit one of the silken strands, unfortunately. Well, silken strands or chitin plate. Go with the chitin plate. We have another. There we go. Alright, let's see if we can scare out more of these things. They must be somewhere among all of this. Okay, I've had that one, but I think they may be to the north. I think that's the one that I missed. I think that one is basically just a place where we can get silken strands. Yeah, that's most likely a silken strands location. This is probably where. Got it. Pillar worm. I'll name these pillar worms. They seem to have burrows all over this place. These long, segmented creature... I couldn't read the rest because it left. Unfortunate. Okay. We can head back at any time, which is good, and which we're going to do. That said, I'm ending this episode here. Next episode, we're going to look in on all of the information we gathered from this garden. Of which there is a lot. But that'll be in the next episode. So until then... I'm Chestic44, also known as Fly. This has been a Let's Play of In Other Waters, and I shall see you all next time.